All right. Hello, everyone. This is
Hello.
BKI Office Hours 44. I think we might have lost count on one, but we've just kept this train rolling. So happy to do that. We've got quickly little introduction.
Let's introduce the special guest here first.
Otherwise it's just going to be popping up in the background. It's going to be like, what is this? What's happening here? So this is unknown name, but lovely dog. Excited to bring into the BKI family, and he's going to sit here and relax while we do this office hours. So quite the experience for this first couple of days here, and appreciate you guys joining. Great to see you. We've got some good topics here to go today. I'm Bryden. I am CEO of BKI, doing a lot of product development, sales, customer success, and fundraising. Oh, I know. I'm going to mute once I do this, and just very grateful to be here and have a lot of good things coming together personally and professionally. So.
Hi, I'm Lorne, Collier, the accountant and the administrator here, and just looking forward to having a good chat.
Hey, I'm Nihal, the digital strategist here, working on comms, outreach, and like Lorne, I'm also excited for a good chat.
Right. This is Vatsal Shah. I missed the last one, but I'm trying my best to join the office hours. It's exciting one. This week it was exciting one, at the same time exhausted one too. A lot of things were going on in parallel, but it was fun. Glad we made it throughout the week, and also seeing the happiness on the client's face. So that's what made the week.
Beautiful. And Vatsal, I'm interested. I saw a LinkedIn post earlier this week at some point, and then also one of the topics that you're bringing to the table is talking about. I mean, first of all, you're an engineer, a developer, and what you're thinking about is I guess over engineering of product, adding too much complexity, or just adding too much in terms of features without solutions. So be interested to hear and just sort of talk about what you're seeing from your perspective, what inspired you to put this as a topic, and also as a post. Set the table for you, and happy to chat a little bit about that.
All right, just 1 second, I'm almost there. So as I think so, reading something, and I found also in like past experience seeing the same questions from, you can say, from the investors, or you can say from the tech leaders, and also who are coming from this enterprise experiences. And I wouldn't say about the experience how the early stage companies work, or like how the two environments and the two cultures are different. But I mean, there are so many people who would be agree or disagree with the idea. But when you go to the engineering team in any department, what I said about this article on it's like, don't over engineer your product. And because what happens sometimes, you try to do it best, and it's like sometimes product get killed. It's more about because of the over engineering, not even because of in the absence of good development practice. So don't try to do that. And there I put a couple of points, which is like, we are all young. We are always try to do, oh, this is trending on X or a Y platform. We heard this. We saw 15 people like that, 20 people retweeted that, or 15 people commented on my post. This is pretty cool. But that sounds cool, but you need to keep it aside from the engineering or the product at the same time. Because what in the early stage companies, when you are building the product, I personally feel that understanding about why do you want to implement that trend? Why do you want to implement that best practice? Does that fit with your product? Does that fit with what you want to accomplish? And if let's say if those best design patterns or the libraries which you are trying to fit, if it doesn't help, then just don't do it. You don't need to showcase to other people that, oh, we are so cool because this is trending and we are also using that. So that's things to understand, to stay neutral when building a product. And also sometimes this is more the premature optimizations happen a lot of on the engineering end, because what happened that we find some problem, and it also involved myself too. And I used to thinking, I used to be thinking like, oh, what if I implement X, or what if I implement Y, because I'm gonna need it in 3 months or 6 months. But that is not every time it is required. You don't need to premature optimize the product. Let the problem come on the table, wait for that, because sometimes you think about it, okay, that's good, because you're thinking in that direction, but not all the time. You don't need to waste your time to optimize your product prematurely, because that is also not good for the product, or even the business. And okay, that might gonna help, which is very high, 50% probability that might help or might not occur, that issue which you are trying to optimize. And it's basically what I'm trying to convey here is technology should and must provide a simplistic solution to the customer. That doesn't matter what you are doing behind the scene. If it is not solving your problem, or I mean customer's problem, nothing matters at the end of the day. And this is a graph, if you see, I mean, if someone is watching on the engineering end, they would definitely agree with this. It's like when you start your career, you write the simple code, okay, because you don't have enough experience. You try to be simplistic. But as you learn, because of your, I would say, the patience, or I mean, passion towards do something, or even, because you read articles, you go to the conference, you meet different people, and you heard this different design patterns, or the technologies, or the libraries, and you try to work on that, and you create the complexity of the codes unnecessarily. And that's, and over the time, I mean, I would put myself here, over the time, you realize that you don't need to write the complex code because you want to, it's sort of the bodybuilding, because when you do the bodybuilding, you try to show off to the others, which is very physically visible. But in the code, you just want to show how smart you are, but that is not, it's not help to the companies or over the time to other people or other developers, because you might have write so complex code, they just need to garbage it. It's very simple option, a button called delete. It just goes away. All your whatever 50 weeks of work or 6 months of work, and over the time you see the super simple code, you try to do that. So I mean, I was reading something and it triggered. It's like, this is needs to be addressed, or this is very required, and need to understand at what stage you are dealing, what you are doing, and this just comes from the experience. It's nothing. It's nowhere written in theory. So yeah, I hope you guys have found something meaningful out of it, and that might help.
You this week had Nivideta join the team and sort of onboarded her into the system of Speak AI. From at least from I think our team, from Nihal, Lorne, and I's perspective, it seems like she came in, understood things quickly, and made a pretty good impact in 1 week, which is exciting from our perspective. And when you sort of pointed yourself out, on the curve of that graph and the complexity of code, you put yourself, more on the piece. Do you think that's reflected in Speak AI? From an optimization standpoint, how do you look at the code or what you've built at Speak AI? And then, obviously the other part is that there's, just to add on to it, I'm wondering, like, the general task that sometimes people are trying to accomplish with Speak AI is relatively or even fairly complex. So then that sort of builds abstractions or complexity within the solution, and then the engineering of that solution. So maybe, just some thoughts on that.
Yeah, so for example, we onboard Nivideta and see work on the code base, and it is like only 40 hours. These are very complex code bases. We have built either the front end or even also the back end, right? And think about as a business, what is important is like you need the output at the end of the day, right? Doesn't matter you're putting 400 hours or 40 hours. If you don't have the output, you don't have this execution, nothing matters. So what helped also for the Nivideta, the architecture, what we have built to try to use the words which make sense to even the normal person. Okay, you're not going to write the logic as a normal human, or if you're not the non-developer, I would say, but if you're the developer, you can get it, you can understand, you can feel that this is yours, this is you have written, right? So that makes the connection with the code and yourself. So in my view, that's what makes more important, to understand the code easily, and then you're going to start making the impact rapidly. And the second point you had is the complexity. So of course, it does contain the complexity, but you need to understand over the time. You don't need to understand in the first 40 hours. You don't need to understand in first 80 hours. You come to those complexity within a month, right? And meanwhile, you build that confidence, you build that understanding, you understand how the system flows, and then everything just makes sense. Even though it is so complex, the things just make sense. Oh, I know where it's supposed to be. I know what's happening. But if I try to tell you that, hey, can you work on X component? It's like, it's just gonna not make any sense. It's like, what I'm doing here, what is happening, right? So it's sort of the flow you need to set a path to make them fly.
Nihal, any thoughts on this part specifically? Huh? Oh. I just, I guess just, one thing that's sticking out to me lately, like, for example, there's a dog here right now. And then it's like, you have a function that you need a dog, like very simple. It's like, I need a collar for this dog. It's a very simple function, like a thing around the dog's neck so that it could attach to a leash. And then there's a product that is delivered and there's a need that's made. And I've experienced the same thing with purchasing the house. It's like, oh, you need a lawyer for this. You need a real estate agent for this. And I'm guessing it's just like, I was a little bit inspired by this week of this jobs to be done sort of framework. And now I'm adding complexity to this whole conversation. But what I'm trying to get at is there's a lot of simple jobs that people are trying to get done in Speak, but then there's like layers of things that are built on top. And then there's more abstract or challenging tasks that people are also trying to accomplish with Speak. And, in some cases, it's really nice because you're solving these complex technical problems and it creates value with the system. But then other times you get sort of like, not jealous, but you look at a solution that's much more simple, where Vatsal, you could have, if we had chose, a specific widget or a certain, very, very tight niche of a customer or something, it's like maybe the solution is viable within 6 months and then you don't even need to continue engineering it or innovating on it kind of thing. So, I think we've sort of, both purposely and unpurposely delved into a very complex world of language and speech and analysis and all these things, which again creates value, but adds complexity and a lot of need for ongoing work. And then what you said is technical development and then even maintenance of that to make it more viable.
When it comes to over engineering, or I guess engineering the right amount, do you think there's overlap, or does it play a role on the front end and how the customer experiences the product as well, or is that more of just a back end management issue normally? Like obviously everything's interconnected, but I guess how closely
Yes, it
tied
absolutely does, because what you're seeing on the front end, it is sort of who you are. Consider as a who you are. That's your soul. That's your who you are from inner body. So that's what you're gonna try to represent to the world. It's the same story. The code is just the sort of the skeleton of the body, and what you're trying to display. If one of your bone is broken, you're gonna see right away that, oh, its hand is not working properly. His eyes are in it to severe specs, because those components are not properly developed, or you overdevelop those components which wasn't required. You just need what needs to be there, and that also makes the customer's life easier. That, oh, I know where what I'm doing here, or I know what I'm looking here. Otherwise, it just creates the complexity at the same time because it's coming from the code, nowhere else.
I mean, Nihal has done like an excellent job for marketing some of these tasks, but like I would say one of the examples we'll see is like someone types in on Google, convert audio to text. And it's like, that's their job to be done. You know what I mean? They're trying to hire this transcriber in a way to replace, so they don't have to do it themselves. And then they get into Speak and there's all these other components or things that don't necessarily get in the way, but in some cases do probably get in the way, add sort of cognitive load to the experience, and just like sort of make a very simple task more difficult than it possibly even needs to be. And it's like some people we've had say like, why I don't want to see the, I don't want to see the insights first, just show me the transcript. Or, cool that it does all this, but I just need to get the transcript. And again, it's a good thing. It's an opportunity because we've flown, people have flowed through the system, and then because of the configuration of our platform, they've had a breakthrough about transcribing that's then made our platform more valuable. But in some cases, we do make the actual path to their original goal more complex. But then,
But the part connected here is because we also develop the things with the time, not before the time, right? Because the definition or the scope of what is the custom category were developed over on the, I would say it wasn't predefined scope that what exactly the system does look like, right? It was like we learn through the process what the customer needs, and we try to create less complex as much as we can to the system, right? So that's called also the depth of the code because there are so many things can be optimized. It's only that there are two variables. One is the cost, and another is the time. So either or, you need to manage that. Okay, when it is a time, you need to wait, or you need to hire more developers or engineers to recreate or make sure those things are working, or it's vice versa with the cost, because it's also going to cost the business at the end of the day. So it's very much, these three dots are very much connected, and you need to compromise one of the factor.
Yeah, and I think we've been both successful and not as maybe not executing on it as well as we would like. But like again, you use the example as the custom categories, and it's like that came up because someone transcribed something, saw that they could analyze it, and then said, hey, I'm actually looking to pull or extract this out. So then you build in that layer. And we have people, and won't jump too much into it, but sort of this sort of shareable interactive media library, and it's like pushing our system to the limit in a way that we originally envisioned. Like not just the actual transcripting part, it's everything. It's, literally the interactive library, using custom categories, extracting keywords and phrases out that our default categories aren't doing. And so I think there's a really exciting moment where you're working with certain customers who are pushing your system to the brink, and there's a different kind of like product market fit when you work with them, and then also find some people who are pretty visionary with how they sort of came across the system, used it, and saw potential and opportunities. So it's just the difference in customers and the people who are flowing into our system, and it makes a big impact on the path that they have, how we make them successful, and then how even attuned the platform is to their needs.
And also it's sort of the ongoing process, because even the engineering or the development are never-ending process. Because you need the improvements, you need the optimizations, you need the security. If you add all of this factor, something else pop up. So you might need to create the whole business segment out of it. It's like, oh, we have this vertical, now we want to build in X vertical now, or X business sector, and how we can evolve product from there, which is already working. So it's sort of the ongoing process where you need to be alert, I would say, in your day-to-day. Otherwise that compound effect could hurt, or hurt a business quite a bit if you're not alert what you're working on, what you're doing with those things.
I'll just we'll wrap this topic up, but it is like, it's pretty crazy to me, the complexity of what not only us but people have figured out through that a human can make a sound that is interpreted as language, that then technology can use to convert that into words, build into this platform, and then bring a real person from a transcriber team to clean that up. Like the layers of complexity is incredible, and I can't believe as a civilization that we've actually gotten this far. So very excited to be just a small part of that, and finding some pretty interesting things within those groups. So Nihal, I've got a couple of interesting topics here I'll let you pick whichever one you find is most interested. But obviously, you and I had a pretty fun week. Some good lessons, some good things. So we'd love to hear what you're thinking on your end.
Sure. So this week was interesting in that, we talked about it on our last office hours as well, where we planned to start our kind of sales outreach and finding, people to talk to, get feedback on our product and clients as well. And two things that surfaced. Well, one that's just kind of funny is the fact that, working in a global market, having a general awareness of what's happening in other countries where our clients might be, potential clients might be, is very important. So we kind of learned that the hard way by sending out a whole bunch of emails, only to realize like 30 minutes after we sent them that it was American Thanksgiving and most people were already logged off till next week. So that was definitely a fun little revelation. We had a chuckle, and it's kind of sucks that we never caught it in the first place, but hopefully it makes for a funny follow-up after the fact. And the second part, I think it was something we talked about while we were drafting these emails and attempting this kind of first mass round of outreach that I'm not sure if we've done before, and if we haven't, this is like a first attempt at it, where we want to always find this fine line between being salesy or being spammy or bugging people, right? Like I feel like that's a very big concern that we have just as people, but one thing that I've been hearing a lot lately, and I had a conversation with a friend recently where this whole concept of you don't really get what you want unless you ask for it, right? And you don't need to be mean or rude or annoying when you ask for things, but it's just how would people know what you want if you don't ask for it, right? And one thing you said that I liked was the fact that even if, let's say, no one responds or no one engages the first time, for the most part that is one more person that is aware of what we're doing today that wasn't aware of what we were doing tomorrow. So even though it's a 5%, even though we wanted 100% and we maybe only got 5%, it's still a step forward, which is great, right? Both from just a learning perspective for us, but also for the business and us as professionals in the field, I suppose, which is a nice way to view it, and mitigate some of the losses, the L's you might take along the way. And the third point is just this whole idea of actually overcoming your fear of outreach, and which is tied to oh, I don't want to bug people. So instead, it's just, if you view it more from, we're trying to provide value, and you actually try to get that point across as best as you can, that isn't a concern you should have. Because if someone A doesn't find it useful, they'll probably either not respond, or they might tell you, hey, I'm not interested right now. So rejection sucks, but it's not the end of the world, right? And I think those are three little notes that came out of this week that I thought were interesting.
I would love to jump in. You might say me smiling a little bit when we're talking. There are 3 points. Number one, I listen and watch also a lot of podcasts on the startup or even on the journey of all these people. The one thing I found in common across all these founders, you can consider the Airbnb one, or even the Mark Zuckerberg or the Uber. One thing they have in common, wherever they go, they always talk about the product unless the other side of the person gets started annoying and they start complaining about, now enough, you gotta stop now. Wherever we go, you talk about the same thing, but it has the ripple effect, right? Because those things stick to your mind about that product, about what they're doing. And even if you get a chance, read about the Airbnb story of first 6 months, they go to the market by themselves, all these founders, and they bug the people. Hey, we have this product. Are you gonna use it for this renting and everything? And that's why I was laughing, because if you're not bugging people enough, you're not doing your job properly in the sales. Unless until you're not, annoying someone. Is like, now, Nihal, you're gonna stop email, otherwise I'm gonna complaining to someone, on the so something like that. So I don't know. It's not supposed to be any fear or any embarrassment about sending those email or even talking about what you're doing or yeah. So
Yeah, because I think to that point, like even if you, let's say you talk about something and someone doesn't understand, right?
Yeah.
It's a signal to you or to us that we need to improve our messaging, right? It's a signal
Yeah.
that we need to improve how we talk about our product and actually letting people understand what we're doing, right? And for example, I think we're doing a lot of work, we're moving towards that a lot more within the app itself, but also constant, and we've done quite a bit of work on that on like the marketing side, the website side, but even just constantly improving that, right? Like your messaging is never static. It's
But
always
how
going
you
to
gonna know
change.
that? How you gonna know that?
Exactly.
Let me ask you.
Unless you don't, like, well, to your point, right? Like if the more people that come to you and they're like, can I do this? Or, does your app do this? Does your software do this? Because we've had questions, I think, where sometimes you're like, in your head, or when we look at the messaging, we're like, okay, this is pretty clear that we do this. But then we'll have customers come in and be like, oh, do you do this? And it's like, no, right? But at the flip side of that,
That's a good side of it, right?
that's the good side of it.
Because
Yeah.
in that sense, okay,
Yeah.
that we know that what things are not working, that we only need to focus on whatever the 10%
Yes.
or even 15%
Yeah.
of things
Yeah.
instead of 85.
Exactly. And then the flip side of that is also just sometimes like, is a user error, right? Like we've had times where people just don't read, right? But you can't blame end users. It's just more like, okay, if let's say they are that population where all they see is the headline, right? Is your headline doing enough to tell them what they need to know, for example, right? So it's been an interesting week. Like when I was just chatting with my friend about doing a bit of sales work as well. It's like it's a nice learning opportunity, even just from a comms perspective, because ideally at the end of the day, right, as we generate our messaging and as we build out our different communications channels, this helps us understand how to approach a sales prospect with our messaging versus, let's say, a social media post with our messaging versus just translating all of that into website content, for example, which I think is great, and then obviously ultimately into our product.
Also, Tara can talk, but we're not gonna say the name. But Tara had the personal experience when he went to the Tech TO, and one of the founder was constantly talking about the same thing. And it's like that. What makes them, to be honest, great is because they're bugging people and making sure those names or the product gets in their nerve. It's like, yeah, Tara.
Oh, just, I mean, very insightful, just talk about this whole thing, which was, so Nihal, besides the out of office messages that I got, I did get, I think, I would say about a 1% conversion rate on a positive response about someone who wants to actually try out the platform. So say a small sample set, 100 people, you reach out, you try to do your best to personalize those messages. And again, with the right timing, with the right messaging, what I think you need to also be confident in, and the way that, you reframe it. And I actually had sort of a revelation this week when Vatsal and I had the meeting with our one client, and we, I'm really excited about the Cheryl Media Library. It's like, this is amazing what this is capable of. And like, when you're proud of what you've built and like the capabilities are, it's not really bugging someone. You know what I mean? It's like,
Don't you say it's educating someone?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think, even like what Nihal said is people are very busy, especially for Thanksgiving and stuff, but it's like what we're doing, I think, I mean, obviously it's subjective, but objectively is quite fascinating. And even by the way that we're outreaching and showing like what's capable, it can help people just have a little bit of a shift of mindset of like what's possible with some of the technology and innovation today. And again, maybe not everyone responds, but I feel like at least in our message, like I'm looking at the message right now, sort of the outreach, and it's like that's a good first impression. That's a good first, foot forward to represent who we are. We're passionate about this. We want to help you solve problems. This is coming from experience, and if you're interested in this kind of work, and hopefully they are, because of the right people we're messaging, we're confident that we can create some value here. And that feels good. I don't feel embarrassed about the messages. Now, my first iteration of it was probably 4 or 5 sentences longer, and it's getting tighter and tighter. I also think, what I see here is basically saying we're hoping to support, people like you, fantastic teams like yours. But then I would say, a quick bullet point list of sort of 4 things. And they're all pretty crispy, quick, cost-effective, automatic professional transcription. So they're all points that are exactly relevant to what we're doing, but even it's that same idea of marketing, when you only want one CTA or one thing, even by giving 4 things, are we creating value there, or are we just creating confusion and people don't know what we're specializing in or what they should be adopting most? So a lot of lessons to be learned in iterations from this process. But I like the way Nihal is looking at it too, is the feedback that we're going to get from this reverberates through our entire communication strategy, through our marketing, through our product development. The feedback that we get, even testing some experimentation this week through some outreach on Twitter to some audiences. And I sent them a message and they say, "Oh, this is interesting. Currently, I use this product and it's helping me do this, but I wish it would do X." So it's that sort of formula starts to come, and it's coming from real world data and real world people, instead of the theory based stuff that sometimes you have when you're not on this constant outreach. And just one last part I thought about, which is I told Nihal this, it's I love watching podcasts Tom Segura and all these comedians, and they talk about writing a joke and they laugh and they think it's so funny. And then they go on stage and they tell that joke and no one laughs. And it's until you put that thought or that, into the real world, you have no idea if it's valid or not. So for us to get this feedback, whether it's positive or negative, it's going to help us iterate very quickly. So that's an exciting part of the journey. We've got a nice system that we're building up. We're outreaching to the right people, and we'll continue to get better at it.
I also have one belief between the education and help. There are so many people who wants to learn something new or educate themselves. But in my view, the ratio is so high in the world where people needs help rather getting the education, because they might stuck somewhere. They want help either in the business. Let's put the business right now. It's they need help in the businesses rather, hey, I have enough education. If you can help me, let's do it. So, it's more about helping people also than educating them sometimes, isn't it? Because in the businesses, they are definitely educated enough. That's why they are doing business, or probably smart enough in that sense.
Listened to a podcast this week it was Gong, but they did the podcast with the CEO of HubSpot. She's an awesome lady, and really talked about the transition from them to the model of sales, which is funnel, which is you drive someone through marketing to sales, and then at the end it's you hit the gong and the relationship is done. You know what I mean? It's just you got the sale. Yeah. And how they transition to this flywheel perspective, where it's the more what she said is customer acquisition is less important than customer retention. And that's such a beautiful perspective to have. And I feel as a team, and even the way we've built this, it's we're not just trying to sell people on a solution that doesn't create value. Our goal is actually to unlock this on an iterative sort of process of breakthroughs. Once you start using the technology and applying speech to text and natural language processing to the kind of media that you're generating. And then,
isn't it depend on the package size?
I think at the core level, what I feel proud of is that we're not trying to sell something that is unnecessary or doesn't create value just because we can, because we're, when we put the right sort of mechanisms in place, we're selling something that can create a lot of value. And it just, basically at the end of that podcast, they asked her, 2 words, 1 word, how do you define sales, successful sales? And she said, providing value. And that it makes sense. And this is the CEO of HubSpot, who was a massive organization who transformed how we think about sales, customer success, and relationships. And even as you brought that up, Vatsal, I'm like looking at my email that I was outreaching to people, and I'm like, this is nice, but like, what help am I providing? It's like, here's what we can do to you, but truly, like, how can I give you an insight or value right away instead of just sort of more, here's what we do and here's how we'd like to help. So trying to reframe that even for the next round of outreaches when people aren't eating turkey. Yeah.
Do you actually know like what they need help with? Do you actually know what to address like right off the bat, or is it more like, hey, how you doing? This is what we do?
That's the problem. And I think Nihal and I had this experience, not the problem, but it's the trade-off, which this week is like, we have a really good, group of people that we, based on who's using the system to date, who we're creating value for. And again, some maybe are using automated transcription, some are using professional transcription, but then there's the far tipping point, which we have a couple teams, or especially one team that I talked about earlier this week, which was just like pushing our system to the edge, and they fit in this bucket of customers and ideal people that we're reaching out to. So we've got like, we've narrowed in on like what that value is. Now, there's a huge difference between, I would say, maybe a director of research at a small firm in Toronto versus a senior qualitative researcher at Facebook/Meta. You know what I mean? There's a big contrast in like where the value is being produced. And sometimes we're trying to bridge the divide between that. And I think in that case, you really need to personalize the message. But, Nihal and I were saying like, this is 6 to 15 to 25 minutes to personalize this message really, really, really hard down. And I think that's something that we would like to do. And as we can scale up our team, we will. But right now it's like, I just, how can we get this message pretty personalized and valuable and reach more people at a quicker rate? And that's sort of the trade-off that's being made right now.
Yeah, because like I the first round was just, because we were trying to figure out this, well, Tyler figured out the I guess partial automation of it. Obviously we still try to be somewhat personalized, but when you find someone, you do the research on them, you try to send a message that hits close to home and like, makes it seem like you actually, well, not makes it seem like you actually did your research. It takes so long, right? Like you'll basically send 5 to 6 really nice emails that might not even hit. So it's that trade-off of like, you start off just trying to hit as, throw as many darts and hit as close to the bullseye as possible. And then as you get your practice in and you build your sales team, eventually you can actually have people being, all you need to do is like really get to know these 10 people and like bring them on board. Right. And then next week, same thing, these 10 people, bring them on board, and like so on and so forth. So finding that line in messaging between being too vague and too personalized, like trying to get somewhere right in the middle is always a challenge, but a good one. It really forces us to think about what is necessary and what are the elements of our messaging that we can just forget about, right? Like people don't care right at the start. Yeah.
Yep. If you connect the first point we had about the overengineering, which is not always aligned with the coding or development, but if you put in this sense, or even the premature optimizations, which is like, isn't it overengineering when you are trying to optimize something where the job needs to be done? Framework was like, hey, let's send 100 people's email. Let's see what's working, what's not working, and or maybe 1,000 people to get that round figure and see what's working. Or at the same time, over-engineering in the sense of takes 7 days to write or send, or takes 7 days to send 100 email or 50 email because the process is over-engineered to create that value. But again, it's a trade-off, but it's always been like that. So where does that fit?
Do you guys ever like reach out to like friends or acquaintances of customers we already have and have any interest in doing like referral kind of programs?
I think, one of the one of the books that, I know Nihal's read, that's what I think you read too. I read Crossing the Chasm, talks about sort of like we talked about it in the one call, but like the sort of D-Day approach where you pick a piece of land, you target it, and then you go. And like what they're saying is one of the most important parts of that strategy is like a reference customer, basically, who matches the qualities, size, needs, challenges that the people that you're reaching out to. And we're lucky. I think we have some opportunities with some good reference partners who actually really appreciate what we do as a team and then deliver. I think that's a thing that we also don't necessarily take advantage of sometimes, which is, between all of us four here, there are some amazing connections that we've built who have followed our journey. And it's just that idea of asking, reaching out to, I think maybe 5,000, 6,000 people on LinkedIn. Many of them are maybe not that close, but there's a lot of people who would love to support. And it's just like the right ask at the right time that could trigger something. And especially if you make that ask in a valuable way. So I think we do need to take advantage more of that. I think, as we refine where we're creating value, our messaging and our asks will get even more valuable. And we'll see success there. And like one thing I've talked about this before, but that experience that I had when I was 6'5", reaching out to nonprofits, you know what I mean? And that was like, it was systematic growth that was being unlocked that, I never fully saw to its potential, but it was already there where it was like this nonprofit with a size of this many, at least this many years of incorporation, this much in revenue / budget per year, and could find their information on, the CRA website with all the verified information and just reach out and give a very strong value proposition. Say, hey, there's this Google Ad Grants program. It's $120,000 USD a year in free advertising. Would you like some help setting this up? It's going to be like 10,000 people to your website every month based on the searches you want. And it was almost like such a good offer that it was almost like Nigerian prince offer. Like I would say that the pushback sometimes was like, this sounds too good to be true. But like, how can we get Speak to be that? You know what I mean? Like, how can we get Speak to be close to Nigerian prince in the value that we're creating? So that's something that I'm trying to think about from that perspective. Is there's some work to do, but with the right references, with the right case studies, and showing and highlighting the people who have really gained value from our system, I think we can get there. It's just going to continue to take some work and optimization on our side. Cool. We're coming up on time here. Go, Vatsal, you good? Okay. I guess just something that came together this week that touches on a couple of these threads was these, sort of going into production here, these intercom product tours. And it really does sort of, I think, it sort of connects to all the conversations that we've had here today and, on an ongoing basis, which is how do we provide value for people? How do we educate them? How do we take what is sometimes a complex task and make it more simple, make it more understandable, and really reduce some of this, like, it's not there, but it's like alien technology or feel of that when you're maybe logging into the system for the first time and, unlocking sort of a new paradigm for how you're interacting with audio, video, and text data that not a lot of people have, not that many people have had the ability to, or the privilege or the access to. So, I'm again very proud of what we're building here and that we're like sort of democratizing some of these abilities for people. But with that becomes a big responsibility of, there's not, this is technical and hard. This is hard stuff. So how can we make sure that people feel like they're confident in what they're doing and that our system is the right platform to do that? And so this week we really unlocked these basically intercom product tours. And, Vatsal, I'm not sure if you want to talk about that at all, but there was a technical challenge to unlock this that I think is very interesting. And for anyone who's trying to build product tours in and then maybe using intercom, maybe talk about sort of how apps dynamically generate and how what also was great is where Nivideta contributed and came in and make a good impact on the company right away. So I'd love to hear maybe a little bit about what you saw from that side. And then maybe we can just talk about, how can we make sure that with this ability now to embed these product tours, how do we make these as successful as possible for our end users?
Yeah, so the problem with the product tour, even on the intercom, was Because when you use the dynamic generated single page applications, either React, Angular, Vue, they do also generate their own classes behind the scene dynamically based on when the page loads. So if you open in the inspect elements, it's very simple index.html page, nothing else, but all the components are popping dynamically as you use those pages. So it does save a lot of loading time and stuff, but at the same time, it has pros and cons. So those are not pre-generated pages. So so what does that mean is, so let's say if you go to the audio list, it's create that component or the HTML over the fly. So we had the issue with intercom was not popping up those segments properly when you are going through the tour. So first one we released was this explore inside, and sometimes the issue was found is like if we are assigning sort of the tour to one of the drop down, it just pop up in the center of the page, and that was the issue. And Tyler also spent a lot of time to creating other product tours on the app, but so now Nivideta joined Speak, and she did spend time quite a bit this week on assigning the unique classes so that we can assign in the product tool of Intercom to make sure it's always pop up. So that was the job done, and now we have all this product tool probably can go live because it is live, but we just need to enable from draft to there you go. Yeah. So that was the little bit of demo of the dashboard or the homepage product tour, and it's very fascinating because it's sort of the education, and at the same time how you can tell someone in the simple English what does that even mean. So that's the challenge. We will see how people react to the product tour. What is the drop off? How much they can go to the product. I mean, the flow of the product tour, and how we can optimize again over there, what we can learn through the process. And it's a good learning lessons we are going to have in the future.
Similar to the sort of outreach conversation we just had, where it's like, until we put it out there, we don't know. So
Yep,
now we've got the
exactly.
lesson of people having this. And I also, this week we had a couple conversations where people were asking us just like, what's been effective in your marketing? And what I wish, what I want to get Speak to be is to the point of something like Intercom. Like I don't know how many now office hours we've talked about Intercom and sort of the value that it's created, the investment we're making back into that platform because they're, built an incredible solution. It's very inspiring. Again, excited to sort of take this next layer of the value that Intercom is doing. And then again, like Vatsal said, seeing where people are dropping off and learning where we're from, every day, say 10, 15, 20 people signing up, where can we make this experience as smooth, as easy as possible? And after their first session, they're like, wow, this is awesome. And I'm confident now. And I'm confident to use this myself. I'm confident to recommend this to someone else. I would love to invite my team member to this so they can check out what I've just done. So there's a lot of good inspiration from even some of the systems that we've embedded into our platform today, where we can bring, hopefully Speak AI to, and not just hopefully, we will. So yeah.
Yep. And on the education piece, it's not my concern, but sometimes you don't want to educate someone ahead of the time. You want to educate at the right time so they can understand what does this product tool mean. So let's say if you pop up 10 different product tours in first 2 minutes, that's the overloaded education. It's like, hey, give me a second, let me see first, and I'll come back to the product tool after that. So that's the challenge, and we will see how people react to that, and they might love it. It's either or. So we will see.
Just lastly, I guess, just different ways that people learn too, right? Like some people learn through, say, an experience like that, where as you log in, you get guided through the flow. Other people are, more video or visual learners, where they actually want to watch a video walkthrough, and maybe that's a more valuable way for them to get that. Or Some people want to read a well-structured blog post with screenshots and step-by-step guides to how to do it. So for us to truly succeed, we need to account for different ways that people learn and making sure that our system and the way that we educate people on the system is accessible to everyone. And that's just, I think, something that we, should be keeping into consideration for everything. Like one of the things we talked quickly about this before, but like Facebook/Meta, one of the things they really did well was when they would start to build something, they would think of, maybe someone with 3G internet connection on an iPhone 4, and how does the system perform there? And because if you can make it perform well there, then someone who is lucky enough to have access to the latest technology, it's going to be an incredible experience. So. And then lastly, I know we're coming at time here.
That was Kevin from Instagram.
Yeah,
was talking on the 2G when they are building the Instagram before.
And that's if there was one thing I know, I knew you would have watched that podcast, Vatsal, but when I posted it, like that, Vatsal's already seen this, I'm sure he has. But Kevin who started Instagram had an amazing podcast with Lex, and Lex got an extraordinary line of questioning. I always get excited when Lex interviews someone that I care about, because I know that what he's going to bring out from that. And it's like, oh, that's the question I would have asked right there. So I'm so grateful to watch that. But some fantastic lessons from someone who, what I didn't know about him from Kevin was that he had worked at Google and Gmail before he started Instagram, and then had also worked not with Twitter, but, an early Kevin, not just Kevin, Jack Dorsey. But like so many lessons from that journey, the goods, the bads. And even one of the things that's what I really loved was the conversation. It was so like maybe neat for some people, but how Gmail did this too, when they knew that when you came to Gmail's login screen, it was like a 99% chance that you were going to sign in. So they would start to preload the information. So when you logged in, it was like a seamless experience. And at Instagram, they knew if you were about to, post a story or post, not a story at the time, but just to your feed, like a 95% chance you would. So they would preload the image while you were writing the caption. So by the time you wrote the caption and uploaded, it was already done. And so it just felt like incredibly faster than everything else. And I don't exactly have any practical things for us right now, but it's just like, how can we take inspiration from that and do these things in the background that make the experience on the front end feel magical?
That's what a couple of things I have already implemented on the public media library platform, where you have no idea what is happening, but I'm already preloading a lot of information behind the scene. So let's say if you go to the app, if you go to the Explore Insight page, and I know I'm talking office hour, but if you go to the Explore Insight page, there's a drop down called Insight Type. It does take 10 seconds, depends on how many categories you have, which is not preloaded. But what we are building with this public media library is all these informations are preloaded behind the scene, because as soon as you log in, I know that you are going to, of course, accessing this information. Otherwise, you're not going to have this URL accessible. So that's what we are already implemented on this very small piece of information, but it's very important, right? Because you want to go, I want to go to the topics, or I want to go the action items. I don't care about the keywords while you're populating behalf of me, right? So just trying to learn and quickly implement it for the better user experience, because that just completely makes sense.
Especially as more and more media piles up, and there's a lot of data to sift through, right? And we'll continue to. We're sort of like secretly talking about this sort of public shareable media library, but we'll talk more about this as it continues to get released in the wild. But truly was I don't know. I just had a revelation on Thursday walking through that. That's all. Just like so many pieces that we had taken over these years to put together something that it's just, I don't know, I just find beautiful. And it's something as simple as like, even changing the colors of the visualizations to match the brand and what that means to our customers. Or, as what one of the options that you showed was like, with their DNS settings, we can actually route this through your domain so that it's truly yours. You know what I mean? You feel this is yours, and the power that has to unlock now for our clients and users, like really great moment, and just something that, inspires and pushes me forward, even as we as we continue to grow and want to see how do we differentiate, or what are we doing different? And it just has another layer of confidence, I guess, in my back pocket or something, where it's like, we are proud of this. There is no other system doing this. And, we can't wait to bring that into the world. So thank you again, Vatsal, for all your work. I know that was a lot, but came
It was a
together
lot.
very clean.
It was a fun
Yes.
at the same time.
I'm glad to hear that. So we're at the one. Anything else before we log off? This was another great office hours here.
All good.
Thumbs up, Nihal. Go ahead.
Hope everyone's learned something new out of the pod. I mean, out of the pod. So that's another thing we wanted to see is even if we are talking, we get at least one thing out of this 1 hour of investment as a person. It's learning something new. So yeah, I hope you guys have learned something new out of this pod.
You're good.
Amazing.
I would just say I really appreciated, Vatsal, just like it was quick, but like the little talk through about your thoughts around over engineering at the start, right? Like you have built, to me, a very credible portfolio of work you've done and a lot of experience through, working in big companies and now, at Speak AI, and just a passionate learner who continues to evolve. And so, even something like that, I encourage us to do. I know we're trying to make it more conversational, but if someone has something they really care about and they want to do a 5-minute little mini presentation, I think that would be, very, very valuable thing. And I also, one of the other things that came out of that Gong HubSpot conversation was every start of the month, they invite some of their major customers in, and they actually just have an hour-and-a-half meeting with those customers and ask how can we serve you better? So how can we build that into what we're doing here? And we've, had people on the office hours before. So that the highest level is someone comes and talks to us during these office hours, and we walk through these things. And we've had Ben and we've had Alfred and some great people, Justin, come on and do that. But even more, how could we gather maybe a little bit more feedback every week for these office hours, and then share that out back through intercom or through email, so people know that we care about what they're asking, or the questions, or even if it's intercom messages that are coming up every week, why don't we take a list of those, document them, and then sort of address those one by one or something, or just figure out that, so this is more valuable for people who are using the platform today, people who are thinking about using the platform, and maybe people who have just stumbled across office hours or Speak AI for the first time and are trying to figure out what we're actually doing here.
Like a nice little Q&A session. We should open up these calls to more customers, see who actually wants to join. Make a public Zoom call or something.
Yeah. All right. Okay, this is fun. All right, everyone, have a good weekend. I'm gonna pick up my little friend here. Let's say he's having a little sleepy, but he had a good time with the first office hours. Anything?
He's learning a lot. He's learning a lot. But sitting next to you, badly.
I hope he's an engineer or a data scientist.
Sure. He's gonna be smart. Whenever you need anything, he's gonna find it out for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you.